for having me, actually. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure to meet like-minded people because I'm finding it harder and harder to come across to them. I mean, I find some, but you don't find them on your everyday walk.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thank you for being here. It's nice to talk with you as well. So, you practice emotional freedom and you practice with other people, is that right?
That's correct. I do it on Zoom. So I practice clinical emotional freedom techniques. The only reason for the clinical is I use the evidence based, the one that has been studied. I
Mhm.
didn't take a online thing and became certified. So it's more, you know, became certified and you'd go through all the process because you have to learn how to meet the person where they are and you have to know also how to handle their trauma. So an online little training course not gonna cut it.
What led you to work with people in that sense, to work with their trauma and to meet them where they're at?
I didn't know that I was gonna do that, and actually, I was very hesitant. So, I used EFT for my own healing. So, I bumped into Dr. Joe Dispenza's teaching, which made a lot of sense, and I still teach his stuff. But one of his core concept was master your emotions and you master your creations. And at the time, I had no clue what that was, but I was so far removed from even understanding what an emotion is and especially to master my emotions. Uh, and I was ill that the only way through it was to try EFT. I actually, people say, "What have I tried?" And I want to say, because I was unique to this, I tried numerous modalities and I would do minimum 30 sessions for each before I decided if it was effective. So I didn't do one hypnosis session. I did 30 of them. I didn't do Psyche one session. I did 30 of them. And when I realized they weren't working, I would go to the next thing and to the next thing. I was always looking because I was miserable. I'm just going to lay it out. I was pretty darn miserable. And I started noticing changes with EFT, even though it was very uncomfortable in the beginning. And then I realized I was disconnected from my body and I needed to feel versus get rid of this emotion, which is the first response. I just wanted to get rid of just take this fear away, take this anxiety away. This is not working for me. And then came a decision once I started feeling well or better. Will I return back to my existing job or a similar field, or what could I do? And my EFT practitioner says, "Oh, but you could make good money here." And I'd be tapping on it. And I just said, I just can't go there. She was nice enough. She says, I have to give her credit. She just had her way. Says, I'm going to be assisting a training because when you get trained, they have people for emotional support. And, says, you know what? I'm going to be providing, and there's these two trainers. They're very good. Actually, the trainers were superb. Why don't you just take the class? Maybe it's going to help you. That's how she played it. So I did. And then she says, well, you took the class. Why don't you just take the test? You only have 2 months to take it. So I really don't want to study and whatever. So just take the test. So I took the test and I passed. And then she says, well, what do you have to lose? Why don't you just start? Why don't you pay for the mentorship? So I did. I got certified and I did the 50 sessions. I actually did more than 50. 50 was the minimum and 20 separate clients. But the turning point was I was giving a reading, and I do readings, intuitive readings, not, these readings that the ones that they do, the gypsies or whatever, but I did a reading. And I felt that she needed EFT, and she became my first client. And when I started seeing her change, I literally had a shift. I saw her in the going through the waking up process. I was like shocked. And then there were moments where the student was better than the teacher. And that motivated me. And that's how I ended up in EFT.
So you started off with working with yourself, you were saying.
Yes, yes.
You were using this to through your own healing process.
Yes. And I still get sessions from other people because the mind that created the problem can't solve it. And I want the independent. I mean, certain stuff I tap myself, but I want to keep it up because once you have someone holding space for you and also guiding you, because the ego can take you in various places, you can justify the situation. I still pay for myself and I have a commitment for that. I either do a swap or I pay. Either way.
Yeah. What does your process look like then? Because you're hitting on some very important points, like how your mind will justify the patterns that are here. What does your process look like when you're working through this EFT?
Well, I really try to focus on the emotion, the body part where it is. I also try to breathe, which most traditional EFT practitioners don't do. So I always have the person, or even for myself, when I remember, to breathe in the belly. Because when I'm, let's say, angry or I'm afraid, I do shallow breathing and the stories go on crazy. I mean, I'm sure you know what those stories are. They're endless. And I try to go through it. And if I get stuck on something, I schedule an appointment either through a swap or a paid session, and I clear it.
Could
Uh,
you walk me through what that looks like?
oh,
So if you
absolutely.
start to notice there's anger here and you notice the busy mind
Okay.
justifying it, what do you do with it? What do you do with that
Okay.
anger?
So once I see that I'm start looping with the stories or I'm angry, I feel this tightness, I scan my body where it is. Anger for me hits in the stomach. That's my default. And actually, anger happens to be my default emotion.
Okay.
And then I find out, or I ask myself, wh- uh, what's the event that's causing the anger?
Okay.
So it could be getting a nasty email. So I
Mhm.
immediately, my default, I'm just letting you know, and it's coming more now where I didn't see it before, is I want to attack back.
Sure. Yeah.
And the theme behind it is, oh, I'm going to show them the pain they gave me.
Mhm.
Obviously, I know better and I don't do that. But
A part of you knows better.
yes, correct. Part of me knows better. I'm ready to attack. I'm fully charged. And I say, okay, let's hold off here because I'm going to regret it. Or if I do attack back, I know I'm wise enough to know I'm going to get another attack back. So I've acknowledged what it is that the emotion is, what the body part is, what the event is. The event has to be in the present moment. And I'll explain how we can do past and future events.
So
So,
there's a distinguishment between if this is residual pain or anger from the
yes,
past versus is there
yes,
something causing it
yes.
now?
But we only can clear in the present moment. But we have practices that we can go to the past and address that. And then I measure the intensity. I deliberately do it and I try not to skip that. And I always train people to do that. Why? Because the brain is going to come up and say, this thing doesn't work. It's garbage. So I measure it. It's a 7. Okay. From a scale from 1 to 10, my subjective intensity of anger is 7. So, and I deliberately always scan. I mean, I don't write it on a piece of paper. I've been tapping for a long time. I just make a note. Okay, it's here. It's about a 7. Okay, so now I create my statement. And the statement starts even though. Why do we do even though? Because we know words have power. right? This reality gets created by your thoughts, your emotion, actions, and deeds. So your word sends the electrical signal out, right? So I don't want to have more anger. I'm already fumed here. So I'll say, even though I have this anger, I got this nasty email. Oh, I'm going to show him what he did or she, whatever it is. I acknowledge this is what I'm feeling, and I'm opening to finding a place of peace. And I do this 3 times. What I forgot to tell you, because I did do it and I forgot to tell you, is my awareness is where the anger is. So
Mhm.
mine usually is here. And I breathe in the belly,
Mhm.
because the belly breathing eventually is going to stop the looping. So even though I have this anger and I feel it in my belly, I am about to murder this person. How dare he send me this email? I acknowledge this is what I'm feeling, and I'm open to finding a place of peace, or I'm open to seeing things differently. Now, if this was anxiety or fear, I always, no matter what you put as the positive, I add one more step. Right here, right now, I'm
Mhm.
safe and okay.
Mm.
Why? Because we create in the now moment, and I want the person to eventually rewire that they're present. Anger is not one of those, so I don't have to put it. But if I don't really need to put it. So I've done this 3 times here. This body part changes the polarity of the body because the body is a battery. So tapping here changes the polarity. And so my ego has spoken. The ego is the one that wants to go and shred this person.
Sure.
My higher self knows better, but if I don't voice my ego, it's going to find a way to get back to me. So I let it speak, but by putting my awareness on my belly and not forcing it to leave, I'm pouring my consciousness, and the belly breathing is calming me down. So let's assume I did it 3 times. Now go to the body parts. And now here I can say anything I want. This anger. I can't believe he's such a good friend of mine and he sent this email. This anger in my belly. Oh, if I can only just get back even to him. I'm just seething. And this anger in my belly. I'm just so angry. And then I add anything I want. I've helped him so much. How dare he send this to me? I'm so angry in my belly. Eventually, after, let's say I'm in my 2nd round, and I say, this is based on old programming. I'm aware that I'm angry, and this is based on past experience. In the past, I did the best I could given circumstances. Maybe I had replied in the past. And you know what? Part of me feels that I'm open to letting this anger go. This anger doesn't serve me, and I may put, if I keep on this anger, my body's going to react. I'm going to have some physical symptoms. But I only do this part after I fully drained my negative.
What do
So
you mean you're negative?
the negative, all these thoughts. I want to
Mm.
kill him. I can't believe he did it to me. I
Mhm.
swear to God, I've gone out of my way to help him. And if it's anger, which most people don't like to do, I animate myself because I want to get it out.
Mm.
And occasionally, if it was a traumatic situation, let's say someone violated my space, let's say it was someone pushed me. I will ask myself, after I've expressed all the thing I wanted to do, I'll ask my body, what kind of movement did I want to do? Oh, I want to push him away. I can't believe
Mm.
he did it. So I'm actually also using my push him away. How dare he do this to me? So I'm actually using my body to remove this energy.
Express it.
Yes. And that's what does the actual healing.
Mhm.
It's the vocalization of the ego, the personality, the higher self acknowledging, you know what? I'm done with this. I don't need to know that. I know better. And when you've done it correctly, you get what they call a cognitive shift. That is your way out. That situation has dissolved. Somehow there's an acknowledgement. "Oh, he's seeing it from his point of view. It's not affecting me. I wanna see things differently." When you have or maybe the desire, "You know what? It's not worth my energy. I'll let it go." When the person has a cognitive shift, I can tell you a very strange personal experience if you're open.
Yes, please.
So I was estranged from my sister for 35 years.
Mhm.
Didn't speak to her. There was animosity, there was anger, both sides.
Mhm.
I would, obviously, I'm in this healing process. No matter what I did, I would send her nice emails. Let's meet out in public. Let's resolve this. And there was one memory that always used to come up. When I was 2 years old, there was an accident. She was washing me. I got cut here and cut here. I ended up in the hospital. And for whatever reason, I would clear the memory. And one day I'm working on an irrelevant topic, nothing related with my sister, and the memory popped up. So my EFT practitioner said, "Is there emotional charge about this?" I said, "No." He says, "Let's skip the memory." I said, "No." I said, "I'm working on an irrelevant topic. This thing has come up and I've cleared this memory 6 times. I don't know how many times I've cleared it." So he says, "Okay." He actually asked a very wise question. "Is there any chance?" I was 2 when this happened. "Is there any chance there's physical pain from the accident that the 2-year-old feels?"
Mhm.
That was superb. And so what happened is my sister was washing me in a basin in the bedroom, not in the bathtub. And something must have scared me or something must have happened. I don't know what it was. And in front of me, there was a dresser drawer. So I hit my this and this in the dresser drawer and I got a cut.
Mhm.
And my mom, unfortunately, was emotionally unavailable. So I waited for my dad. This must have been 9 o'clock at night. I mean, I don't know. I'm 2 year old. Now, it just took a while for my dad to come from his office because he wasn't informed or he was wrapping up. I don't know what it is. And he took me to the hospital and I got stitched. So that's the overall event. So originally, when I was tapping through the previous, before I go to the last scene, I had made stories. She did it deliberately. She just didn't want to wash me because she was given an assignment. She was 11 years old and she probably resented. Those all had cleared. And
Mhm.
now there's this last one, the 2-year-old having pain. So when I cleared the pain, a voice came into my head and said, "Do you know what happens when a young child or a baby puts its finger in the socket? They learn that the socket is not safe. You've associated since this moment your sister with emotional and physical pain."
Mhm.
When I realized that and I cleared that, it
Mhm.
didn't even take a month.
Yeah.
My whole year of sending her emails, there was a weird series of events. She decided to meet. And now I've seen her, or we're gonna go shopping together next week. Of course, then I had to clear my sadness that I wasted 35 years, and I saw how I unconsciously created it. Didn't consciously create it because the reality doesn't care about your age. And then, of course, I had to clear how unfair was this happened to me at 2. I didn't have the consciousness. It shouldn't have been forgiven, but I saw how it got created.
Yeah.
Because remember, we're creating or co-creating everything. So
Mhm.
that's why all my emails and all my forgiveness, asking her to meet in public, she wasn't responding. Somehow my higher self wanted to see this. That's what we call a cognitive shift.
Yeah.
That was the turning point.
Yeah, you started seeing it differently. And the resentment that you had towards her softened, which you said it was on both sides too. So that
Oh, yes, absolutely. It was delayed with her,
Mhm.
But then, because she remembered me the old way, because I was always defensive. And it's taken her longer to see that there's another person. I also saw a softness in here. It's not consistent, but I see a kind softness in here, which I never saw before. Why? Because I'm changing
Yeah, you were too wrapped up in
the
the
story.
story, the narrative, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting too because here you told me that your dad wasn't present when
My dad came late. My
he
mom was,
came late. Yeah, he wasn't there, and then your
yes,
mom wasn't emotionally present. So for a 2-year-old and an 11-year-old who's now responsible for taking care of the 2-year-old because the parents are not there, what's the message the 2-year-old gets? And what's the message the 11-year-old has there? They're both making sense of this as best they can.
absolutely. She was
Yeah.
probably unconsciously resentful because she was supposed to, go and play. She was deprived of.
Yeah. She was supposed to go and play, and she was supposed to have parents that take care of her.
Mhm.
And if your mom's emotionally unavailable, who's taking care of your sister?
No one.
And now she's got to take on the role of being the parent.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
know it was hard for her, but she can't resent the parents. She's not at that level yet because they're both deceased and there's some guilt there. So obviously it's the next people. So she takes it out on the rest. But
Mhm.
you hit it on the nail. The thing is, she was not taken care of.
Yeah. Neither of you were.
Yes, that's correct.
And there's the pain.
Yeah.
There's the lack of safety right there.
And everything becomes a threat
Hmm.
and you're scanning and whatever. And I think the sadness that I feel is 35 years or 40. I stopped talking to her around maybe 23 or 24. It could have been sooner. And I started talking to her again uh, just before I turned 60. So that's a big scan.
How long ago was this?
Well, I'm 60 now, so I started talking to her a year and a half a little bit more over a year and a half. So we have this whole span that there was
Mhm.
animosity. We hated each other.
Yeah.
And it was sad because I could have had a supportive sister
Yeah.
and I didn't, and vice versa.
Yeah. It's very difficult because, as you mentioned, these stories, these narratives, they form when you're 2 years old.
Yeah. And I think the hard thing was for me is I didn't have this distorted belief that we're not creating or unconsciously creating when we were two.
Hmm.
I had how does consciousness allow this when I'm 2-year old, right? But then consciousness isn't different. It's just whatever you're carrying in your field and however you interpret the experience. And obviously forgive myself that this happened accidentally because I can't blame the 2-year old. I mean, how can the 2-year old know? And she can't blame herself because she's 11.
Yeah. So when this 2-year-old is carrying around all these emotions, there's anger that's here because there's a major threat, which is you're not being cared for, your parents are not available, and your sister, who's a child herself, is responsible for caring for you. So there's this lack of safety, so you're mad, and of course you're scared. There's a panic, there's a nervousness that's associated with this, and there's a lot of pain. So this 2-year-old is forming a worldview, which is as deeply constructed as a 2-year-old can make up because the 2-year-old's nervous system, their brains, their emotional circuits, their worldview is developing at this point, and it consists of your parents and your sister pretty much. So I'm curious, when this 2-year-old is active and you're feeling this pain that this 2-year-old carries around, what do you do exactly? You kind of already told me a little bit about this, but what do you do with this 2-year-old?
Well, I give it some love and support, but I know whatever it is that I'm feeling now is coming from the past. I already
Hmm.
know that. Sometimes I identify these younger selves. I have about 3 or 4 of them,
Sure.
points, and I check with them and I clear it, then I ask them, "What can I do to support them?" That way I'm integrating I'm a big fan of Carl Jung. I'm integrating these shadow selves, or I'll call them
Mhm.
fragmented selves because they're not fully
Sure.
shadow. These fragmented selves that were frozen in time and they're playing on a loop. And the more I do that, I actually realizing some traumatic memories are getting wiped out.
What do you mean wiped out?
I had a rough upbringing, so there was some
Mhm.
physical abuse, not from my sister, later on, in my life, about 5 or 6. Not consistent, just, maybe a handful of 5 or 6 times where those memories were really clear,
Mhm.
being physically attacked and whatever it was. And now I go back and I think about them. First of all, I've forgiven the sibling who did it. I was able to see them, but they're wiped out as if it happened in another reality or another timeline. It's just I don't have a connection
Mm.
to them.
So they're
And
still present, but their power or their control or their weight is different.
yeah, but they don't come up anymore. And I
Mm.
have a belief that they're going to be wiped out from me. They'll
Mhm.
eventually fade away. So, what I want to say for people who work on their healing, sometimes memories have to be worked many times.
Mhm.
I know we'd love to clear them in once or twice, but every time you get a different aspect, and when you work on them on several times, eventually they're going to leave. And I want to give the neuroscience concept of it. So when they're traumatic, they're stored in the hippocampus, and they could be replaying at night without your awareness because that's where trauma gets stored. Other memories are stored in the neocortex. If I asked you, Julian, what did you eat 10 days ago for breakfast? Oops, you don't remember.
I had a protein smoothie.
Oh, okay. Well, you do. Most people don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I eat that every morning, so it's easy
Okay.
for me.
So, um, when we clear the emotions, they move from the neocortex. I'm sorry, from the hippocampus, they go to the neocortex. If you keep on clearing them and you don't engage, memories are held between two neurons. If you don't engage anymore, there's no thought patterns going to it, then there's no emotional attachment. Those neurons prune out. If the neurons prune out, eventually the memory is going to prune out completely.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of thinking about it. There's connections there, and the more that those connections are reinforced by thinking them or playing them out, then the stronger they become.
So the key is first to get the emotional charge. The glue is the emotion holds the belief. So that traumatic memory may have made you feel powerless or feel it's unfair. I can't believe this is happening to me. So you have the emotion of fear or anger because of the attack, the story that goes with it. You remove the emotion and you clear some of the beliefs. Eventually, if you never replay, I see that if they're fading as if it happened in another lifetime. That's how it
Mhm.
starts to feel to me. It's getting so far away because remember, I also forgave. I was able to meet the person and I let it go. It doesn't matter to me. So it is what it is. It was unfortunate. Um, and it's gone. And I eventually do. Bashar teaches that eventually the memory is going to get deleted because you've upgraded the avatar, right? So the avatar doesn't need the story, the behind story. You're moving to a parallel timeline.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way of looking at it in terms of deleting or wiping out or letting go of these memories. If the emotion is preceding your cognitive function and your mind is there making sense of these, processing those emotions,
Yeah.
comforting, soothing those emotions takes away the charge, the power, and that really allows you being here now to see those situations in different ways.
That's correct. You hit that on the nail. And the only reason I know that, there was this guy on YouTube who was, I didn't believe it was true. So he was reading the book Stacking the Wild Pendulum by Itzhak Bentov.
Mhm,
So he was narrating it. So I emailed him, this is like 4 years ago, and I said, can I pay you just to talk to you? He says, what do you want? So I just did. We had an absolutely lovely conversation. And he said to me, it was so hard for me to grasp. This must have been 2021. And he said he had a horrific upbringing, but he's very happy now. And he doesn't remember it seems that his memories from his upbringing are being deleted. And he said it with so sincerity. At
mhm.
the time, I didn't know the neuroscience of it. I mean, we're talking about a real, genuine, whatever. I reached out, who sends an email to someone and says, can I give you a call?
Mhm.
And I offered, I'll pay you for the time. He says, just give me whatever you want. And I end up speaking to him 2.5 hours or 3. I don't remember what I spoke about. I remember bits and pieces, but that stuck. And
Hmm.
now I realize that's what's happening to me.
So this is an interesting concept then, Sophia, because when we go through traumatic experiences and we can't navigate that pain, so if it's happening as children, we only have limited ways to respond to this. You can't make the pain stop. You can't
Mhm.
set boundaries with the person that's abusing you. You can't go away physically. You can't just pack up and leave. So the only thing that's really available to people is to go away mentally. They disconnect from their bodies, which is what you were talking about earlier. It's the earliest defense mechanism, the first and easiest, most accessible way of navigating pain. And
Yes.
so when the memory is so painful and so intense, and we don't have the resources or the skills or tools to navigate that, most of the times we have dissociated from it, we've disconnected from it, and it still lives here. We still intrusively, even if it's unconsciously, relive it over and over and over again in different ways. This is very different.
Let's address that because you brought an interesting concept. So where do emotions come from? They come from the limbic brain. So you have your neocortex, the limbic brain, and the cerebellum. Okay. And when emotion gets produced, it creates chemistry. That's what it is. Okay. So the chemistry, so that emotion, which is energy, emotion carries information because the body needs to remember that. Let's say I'm 5 and I get physically attacked. For whatever reason, which is wise, the body deems you can't attack back because if the person is attacking you is 20 years old, a 5-year-old is not going to win. So for whatever reason, at that moment, you're feeling the fear, you go into the head, the attack is over, and then you loop, right? That information came into my, from the limbic system, if it's anger, went down to my adrenals. But the long story short, that information, that chemistry is stored in your cells. You get 30 of those. Your default, healthy or not, the body doesn't care. The universe doesn't care. You are addicted, let's say it's anger, to that adrenaline rush.
Or your baseline's that high. That's your
That's
baseline. It's the
correct.
normal state.
But you're addicted just like an alcoholic. The only difference is I'm not drinking externally alcohol. I am drinking it internally.
Hmm.
And then the looping thoughts reactivate the limbic brain and it keeps on going on. So the body decided to save it for you because in case that experience happens, it's not safe for you to respond. So someone who has been attacked many times later on in life Majority of them learn to recoil because that's what they did when they were 5. So here are you going through life experiences because your ego or your personality, and when I mean ego is the software set of your persona, deems you're not supposed to speak up or you're
Mhm.
not supposed to attack back.
Or you become a people pleaser. You
Yeah,
become agreeable, you make other people happy in order. These are the adaptations, the patterns that we learned in relationship to that initial pain. So when we're developing in relationship to the environment. The environment dictated that we had to survive in a certain way. This is our default pattern. So this is what you're talking about rewriting here is default patterns.
that's correct. So when the tapping, when that comes up and it's based on old stuff, what we usually say, this is based on old programming, and I did the best I could at that time given the circumstances. What people fail to do is they think out of mind, out of sight. Let's say this is you, this is a magnet. That chemistry of anger is physically stored in your cells.
Hmm.
And they say, well, I'm not thinking about that event. It's here. It's a Wi-Fi signal because the body is a Wi-Fi signal. So you're going to keep on attracting, and the reality is created to attract those experiences so you can see them in front of you to clear them.
Of
They
course.
think they're separate events, but the true origin is that early 5-year-old, 7-year-old, whatever it was. And speaking to the personality or to the body part that thinks, because a lot of times I ask them after we cleared certain stuff, bring the energy of anger, put it in a chair in front of you,
Hmm.
ask it what it feels towards you. After we clear that, how old does it think you are? And
Hmm.
it will come up with an age.
Oh yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah. So it'll say you're 5 years old. Now I go back and rewrite that memory because that memory taught me that the reality is unfair and I have no power to speak. So once all of the emotions are cleared, so we always can do the rewriting when everything is zero, meaning the intensity of the emotions. Now you can create in the matrix whatever it is you want. And the
Hmm.
same way we prune the emotions, we can start creating new emotions. You know what? I did pretty darn good. I survived that experience. It could have been worse.
Hmm.
And that is what creates the new personality, the higher version personality. And by doing that, you're actually physically moving to a parallel timeline.
Hmm. Yeah.
But people say out of mind, out of sight. It's not out of mind, out of sight.
Hmm.
It's here.
Yeah. So it's actively engaging with it in a different way. So when we're kids and our bodies are developing and we're going through traumatic experiences, the chemistry that you're talking about, the hormones, the adrenaline, the histamines, the cortisol, these are all producing at a very high baseline. And our bodies get used to it at that very high baseline. And
That's
so
it.
when you're saying that we're addicted to it, when that's not there, it's like a sense of being depleted. It's missing something.
Correct.
Something's not there. And so then our minds kick in and they create narratives, stories,
Absolutely.
perceptions that will recreate those scenarios to produce those hormones. So when you're saying this, it's a magnet, quite literally, we keep unconsciously looking for the exact same scenarios, situations, circumstances that will put us back into that situation so our body feels back to where it's supposed to be. And I found myself there a lot in life,
And
always looking for the threat, and I will find it if it's not there.
absolutely. And you brought some interesting thing about the mind. So the mind is a recorder, right? So, but it's an artifact of the past. What landscape does the mind have? Only the past, which is why it goes back to the old stories.
Yeah, the old stories. And so when we're working with these patterns, like when we're asking, how old do you think I am? What these default patterns are, they're the adaptations. They're the ways of adapting to that pain. And so rather than letting those drive the show, drive the car that we're in, then we can say, oh, it's a 5-year-old stepping up or a 2-year-old that's stepping up trying to defend us. And then we can be the adults and try to comfort and nurture, soothe that very active default pattern. This
Correct.
way it can rest and relax. So I'm not so sure I really grab onto the deleting or the wiping out, because for me those things are always there. And I mean,
Let
maybe
me
that
say,
maybe they go away at some point, but they're always there, even if they're in the background and just very quiet. But what I find is the more that I can comfort them and soothe them and create safety for them, the more they become like the 2-year-old that's taking a nap in the back seat.
okay, so let's address, this was hard. If you keep, so if they're still there, there has to be either a belief still holding or an emotional charge, which is what I discussed with my sister. That memory, I must have tapped probably more than 8 times, right? There was another aspect. So what creates reality? We said thoughts, emotion, actions, and deeds, right? When all of the emotion and the belief has been drained, and you've learned from that experience, remember, this reality, it's my personal opinion, wants to reduce entropy. That's, evolution is about the reduction of entropy
Okay, so decay.
and wants to reduce decay.
Yeah, reducing the decay.
Right.
So maintaining momentum or energy.
Yeah. So whatever is draining the system, it wants to reduce it.
So
So,
threats.
yeah. So once you've cleared every aspect and you've become the new person from that experience, it doesn't need to hold it on.
Hmm.
So if it hasn't fully cleared, my suggestion is look at it if there's another aspect for that memory that's still holding it in place. It's like you're going through your file drawer and you've settled this issue, whatever it is.
Hmm.
You don't need to hold the old paperwork anymore.
Of course.
And that's what the system is doing. So if it's not fully cleared, it means there's another aspect, not the same that you cleared, but something else, and it gets wiped out. Because a consciousness wants to reduce the entropy, the biggest bang for the buck, and to reduce entropy. So if it's still there, it's serving some reason for you to have it. I'm not saying you did anything wrong. There's another aspect that you need to look at it differently.
Hmm. And that's something that usually happens throughout the process, is we usually see these things from a new light or a new way that we were
Yes.
carrying the same old conflict or the same old pain. And yeah, it's not for me. I mean, I see that these things definitely clear in the sense that we don't continue the same patterns, that the memory of something happening doesn't carry the same emotional charge. So if I remember being abused as a kid, for instance, I don't get activated, like the anger, the fear, the panic, that's not there anymore. And instead of that, there's a sense of compassion for myself and for others. But the memory itself isn't something that I don't know is forgotten or lost or deleted. It seems to me like this is a source of wisdom
Let me ask,
that helps you navigate additional circumstances moving forward.
if someone were to attack you today, let's say you got attacked as a child,
Hmm.
is there any bodily sensation or a millisecond emotion that comes up, or are you going to be in neutrality and full empowerment?
If I get attacked today.
Yeah, so we have the old experience. Let's
Hmm.
assume we're making up a story.
Yeah.
They used to get attacked when you were 5. And at
Hmm.
the time, you can survive it or whatever it is, right? It wasn't easy. But let's say now you get a stimulus, someone comes to attack you now.
Mhm.
Are you in neutrality and in your power, not force, power right away? Or there,
What do you mean by power?
okay, so there's a power I consider knowingness, not
Mhm.
force. So you know for a fact you're going to navigate through this.
Choice,
Yeah.
agency.
Yes. But
Okay.
it's not from force.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm not going to let this happen. You come
Yeah.
into the power and you know this situation is not going to affect me. And I know I'm going to come out of this.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, right? But I mean, if you're getting attacked, you might not come out of it okay. You might be actually in danger. You might be threatened by something.
So who's creating the reality? This is one of the tests the high masters had.
Uh-huh.
S-
Yeah.
Okay. So
So,
if you in a position of power and neutrality,
mhm,
this gets diffused. But if you know, which is why the old memory still has stays there, because you need to know that you haven't fully navigated to the next step. So there were two tests. The one story is in Dr. David Hawkins. I don't remember if it's in Power versus Force or in Letting Go: The Pathway to Surrender or another book. And there's a story of Saint Germain. So he steps on a poisonous snake.
mhm,
And the experience is exactly like in Psalm 91. I think it's 91. I can't remember which Psalm it is. And he realized I'm creating it. It's part of my own consciousness. So he looked at I personally couldn't do it, just letting you know. He looked at the snake with love. He was in a position of knowingness and power. The snake recalled and disappeared. That's
sure.
when you're fully advanced. Now, the story of Saint Germain, in order to it was one of his initiation. I couldn't do that either. It was some very aggressive tiger. He would give the initiates. I think it was a tiger. I can't remember what animal it was. And the person had to, within the next few minutes, calm and pet the tiger. So the key point behind this is the tiger, everything is a projection of you. So the tiger, the aggressive tiger, was the projection of them. And if they could recalibrate and realize their unconditional love, they can transmute it to the tiger and the tiger would reform. I can't do it, just letting you know. But so that applies the same with the attack. Who is creating? So the reality is giving you the attack for you to clear. I mean, I haven't seen many yogis who get attacked anymore or heard of many, right? Because they're vibrating at such high frequency
Mhm.
that these experiences don't come to them because
Yeah.
everything is an illusion, right? Or part of
So
an.
so it's about making choices. So
Yes,
if
yes.
you can take a yogi from a temple and put him here in Portland and walk down Grand Street and they're going to get attacked.
Mm, Probably because they haven't been acclimated, but let's say,
Yeah, and because people are on very serious drugs over here and they're navigating very, very dangerous situations, and that is the atmosphere here. So you can make choices, you can see these dangers, you can see the poisonous snake and decide not to step on it
yes,
and not to be a threat to the snake, and then it's not going to bite you.
yes,
Or, you might be walking down the street and somebody might attack you and you can make choices on how you
yes,
respond to it. Are you going to throw hands? Are you going to escalate the fight, square up and start throwing
cl-
punches? Or are you going to be able to defuse the situation to see that this person's going through something and not contribute to that pain? This is a very big difference in terms of like, so if I was 5 years old or a child, let's say, and I was going through trauma, physical abuse, which I did, and I learned to fight at a very early age. So I never really recoiled. I knew nobody was ever going to come and protect me. And so I would fight the people off of me. And so up until fairly recently in my life, if there was a threat, if somebody came and started attacking me, you can guarantee that I was going to push the threat away. That was going to be my response. So that was the default pattern. But at some point, I started developing some more agency in this. And so, I mean, threats happen here all the time in my neighborhood. You never know who's going to be in your bushes. You never know what drugs they're on. You never know what mental state they're in. But I've gotten so much better at not being hyper vigilant, as in like always scanning and always looking for the threat. But because that attracts the threat, of course, like we were
Absolutely.
talking earlier. But when those threats, when they arise or when they come after you, like if you're driving down the street, for instance, and somebody comes and starts riding your bumper, honking and screaming at you because you're not driving 20 over the speed limit or running red lights, now I can just pull over and let them just go right past me and defuse that situation. So I feel like now I have a great deal of autonomy and agency, and we can call that power. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Or
but yes, but you're on the right. You're hit it on the nail. If you continue diffusing it, eventually your reality, regardless what you see in the collective, you will not have the experiences. They
so
actually change. I can say that from experience.
you're saying that as you continue to develop the ability to diffuse the situations and to engage with them differently, just like the being hyper vigilant, that's a form of defusing a situation from a certain perspective. Is if I can see the threat before it happens, then I can diffuse it. But the irony here is the more that I'm looking for the threat, the more I find the threat, the more the threat sees me as a threat, and then it becomes a threat.
Correct. But
So
go ahead,
the
finish it.
more I choose to not be hypervigilant, or then one step further, the more I choose to defuse the situation, to avoid the situation, to just walk away from the situation, not engage with it, the more that I reinforce and develop my ability to avoid. I don't know if that's the right
Not
word.
avoid, just to diffuse being neutrality, because
Yeah,
avoidance will bring you back experiences. You
right.
have to face it head on, but in exactly what you called agency and power. And
Hmm.
if you do that 10 or 15 times, it's actually the Course in Miracles says there's two choose agains, but let's say it's 10 because um, that you've mastered it, then the reality will never give you that experience again. That's what I'm trying to say. And
Hmm.
when that's done many times, the old memory is going to get wiped out
Hmm.
because you don't need, now you've created this new Julian, I'm sorry, this new Julian. I was thinking of a client, this new Julian, and now you've shifted to a parallel timeline. Julian doesn't need to learn how to master this thing anymore. He cleared it from his system. Remember, you're about to evolve. You're playing a game. The higher up you go, you don't need these trivial stuff. You've mastered, you showed reality and source. No, no, no. I know how to realign and I don't need to see this anymore.
Hmm.
And that only then the memory gets wiped out. Only
Hmm.
after you've done all those steps. It
Hmm.
doesn't get wiped out because I just, I don't want to remember.
Yeah, I see that. It's so if we were to look at, so we look at like Zen Buddhists or, meditation practitioners who are trying to reach like Buddha nature. And they're in Cambodia, Thailand, and there's an armed conflict that's happening where they're launching rockets and bombs across the border and blowing things up. And it's happening in their communities. So there's an immediate threat that's right there, an existential threat, and they don't leave and they stay right where they're at and they continue meditating. This is pretty much the pinnacle of what we're talking about then, because their experience with this is so much different than what somebody who's still navigating those default patterns from trauma would be. Those
Correct.
people would see that as the biggest threat, and there would need to be incredible action, and there would actually fuel the conflict even more, to where in this situation there's a major diffusing of the situation by engaging with it in a completely different manner, and also facing the mortality and the impermanence, the transiency of this reality and the change that comes along with it. So it's an interesting dynamic with that decay, that entropy that you were talking about.
Correct. There's a lovely story by Joseph Campbell. Not Joseph Campbell, Joseph Murphy. So there was a lady and her next door neighbor. So the lady had a son who was a pilot, and he was flying. So she was really into all of these teachings. So the neighbor had a vision that the plane was coming down and the son was going to be killed in a fire as the plane crashed. So she went to her friend, the neighbor went to the lady and said, "This is the vision I got, and we can shift this timeline," is what she said. So she asked, because remember, when you have two more people, there's more powerful. She asked her, I guess they used some form of prayer. What kind of prayer? I don't know. It's in the book of Joseph Murphy. They prayed. This is what happened. This is a true story. The plane has a crash landing and everybody lives. So she actually changed the timeline, because remember, all realities exist in the now. We live in a multiverse. There's many parallel yous. So by her realigning and not accepting, so this is what's called a predictive dream that saw what the reality is going to be. She could have gone into fear and panic, both of them, and then the plane would have crashed and they would have all been burnt alive, but they didn't. But because she knew reality was malleable, she changed the timeline.
So this is what you're talking about with power again, is the ability to enact choice and how you engage with what's happening.
Correct.
And the way that you engage with it dictates the outcomes.
Correct. And the reason I'm big on that, because that's how physical healing takes place.
Mm-hmm.
You're never healing this body. What it is I'm changing my emotions and beliefs. And while I'm doing it, I'm actually moving to a parallel timeline where my body is whole. Because when people have chronic illnesses, they say, well, how can I heal this situation that I've had for 20 years? There's a lot of programming. It's very difficult. Once you realize that you're never healing this, but you're moving to a parallel timeline, which is what the woman did. There's another timeline with the son died. She moved to a parallel timeline, and that's what we keep on doing. And now quantum physics, the observer effect, the first Nobel Prize, the double slit experiment, we have the second one that says that we go back in time and we change time. It's called the double slit quantum eraser, and the 2022 Nobel Prize on non-locality. All of these three Nobel Prize proves that we can do that. So we're shifting.
Yeah, the collapsing of timelines onto and exercising choice in which one you go into. Did you ever watch that cartoon Rick and Morty?
I once, I think, but I think that,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, that's the basic concept. Is this guy? He's a scientist in this case, Rick, which is really interesting too, because he's so mental and intellectual that he's neglected his entire emotional and spiritual aspects of himself, and so he's miserable and an alcoholic. but he has the ability to change timelines. He can, with the push of a button, jump from one timeline to the next. So whenever something terrible happens or he destroys this world, he can just jump timelines to another one. And it's like this way of living consequence free. But really, this is what we're talking about is quite
Yes.
the opposite, is it's not consequence free. It's constant choice and responsibility of really engaging, and you mentioned facing head on the reality of the situations that are happening. You can't avoid it. You have to go through it and exercise your ability to make choices.
Right. I mean, you've done psychedelics, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So depending on what you've taken or high dose, you realize this world disappears. Or at least for me, it has.
it
When I
can. Yeah. Yeah.
So what is the one that's projecting? You are projecting from the inside out there, and it's all happening in your head. And what you're projecting is based on your vibration, your beliefs, and your emotions.
Sure. The
And,
level of consciousness that you've
right.
achieved to this
And,
point.
and if I'm infused in fear,
Hmm.
I'm going to have a horrific trip.
A very scary one.
That's correct.
I think a lot of us have been there.
Oh, I've been many times. And it wasn't easy to come out of them either.
I can hear you. I can tell you right there. I'm right there with you.
So, but when that shifts,
Hmm.
now the projection is different.
Yeah. Or when your relationship with the fear shifts.
Yeah.
So when you have a dream and there's a scary character that's chasing you and you try and run away to get away from them, they get bigger, stronger, and faster, and your feet are soaking in wet concrete and they're lead and you can't get away, and this character's always right on top of you. But if you can face that character,
Mhm.
turn around and ask some questions. Who are you? What do you want? Things like that. The whole nature of the experience, the dream changes. And that's like a psychedelic experience when
Yeah.
the scary thing's happening and you can really turn and face it and engage with it, ask questions and try to be open and compassionate. The whole situation changes.
You address what power is. You were able to go there, see it in front of you, knowing your consciousness. You don't know what the outcome, but you know it's going to be something better than before. And that's what we call power. You
Yeah.
addressed it, you faced it in front of you. What is it that you want? Or I don't want to engage with you anymore. Whatever it is that you want to say. Why, and that's the same thing in tapping. When you put your awareness on it,
Hmm.
now I'm not forcing you to leave because that energy, it's like a dog, right? And you tell, I don't want you here. I don't want you here. I don't want you here. The dog's going to get angry. It's going to start barking. But if you went to the dog, okay, what do you want? Why are you so miserable? Why are you barking at me? Sooner or later, the dog is going to come down. It's the same thing. So you went in the position not being scared, which is force, where I'm going to kill this dog. You went, okay, compassion, you said, which was excellent. Okay, let me have a chat with you. What is it that you want? And now you're transmuting that energy.
Hmm.
And that energy comes back to you. Why? Because everything in the reality, including the walls, the chair, and the table, was created from your own energy.
Hmm. This is exactly what we were talking about in the beginning in terms of working with our own trauma, which is the default response or pattern adaptation that almost all of us have as we try to avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
We want it to go away. We want to get rid of it. We want to fix it. Just get it out of here. And that again is coming from the childish view that we had when we developed it in the first place. But when you can really turn into it and face it, ask questions, get to know this and engage with it with choice, autonomy, and of course, as much development as we've had, which we'll continue to develop it further in life and engage with it in different ways. The whole relationship with the trauma, the memory, the pain begins to change.
Absolutely. And, there's a reason because we were programmed. not to speak to it. And then there's a second reason. When you do start connecting with the body, and especially you've seen it in psychedelics, the bodily sensations are very uncomfortable. They're very unfamiliar. And you
When you're
go into,
disconnected.
well, in the past we're disconnected, but when you're in
Yeah.
a mushroom trip or whatever, they just show up and you don't know what it is and you don't like them. And our default is to avoid them. And
Mhm.
we don't like the bodily sensations because we've blocked them.
Yeah, that was the adaptation.
Yes.
Was if we were constantly feeling fear, and the fear was from our caregivers, and we're programmed to be dependent and to be connected to our caregivers, we have to disconnect from that fear because it's very dangerous.
Mhm.
So we push it away and we go away mentally to as a form to disconnect from it. So when we're reconnecting with those feelings, yeah, they're very scary, very uncomfortable, and absolutely something we want to avoid. And yeah, we can learn to see those feelings and to embrace those feelings and to listen and learn and comfort those feelings and to really cherish them.
Yeah. And that's not easy. And even if you're scared, there's going to be moments that you're going to automatically react. And we need some of them. Okay, so you and I are not students right now or initiates of Saint Germain. So if a wild tiger shows up, there's going to be an instantaneous response of fear. I'm not going to go and pet the tiger. I haven't evolved enough to say, okay, I know I'm projecting you and you're gone. So we need that automatic because now we need to run away. Because if you don't, you're going to be eaten by whatever. It's a tiger or a T-Rex right there. You're going to be eaten alive. So some of it in this reality, we do have to keep.
Mhm. Yeah. Hmm.
But
As we're, well, go ahead.
no, I said you've done a lot of exploration on your emotions and you seem to be very adept. Most people have not, and that's wonderful.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
no, I mean, I could tell from the conversation.
Well, it takes one to know one, doesn't it?
Right.
And I would hope that if we're working with people in this capacity, that we would be doing the work ourselves.
Yes, we do, but you'd be surprised how many people just, kind
I'm
of.
not surprised at all. I worked in health in the hospital systems
Oh,
for
me too. Me too.
quite some time. So yeah, I see it very clearly that the vast majority of people who are in the field have bypassed a lot of this. So thank you for the compliment. I really appreciate that.
Thank you
And
too.
and
You're
and right back at you. I usually it's rare that I get a nice philosophical conversation to really break down what these processes look like and how we're navigating them. So thank you for coming in and being able to go into a nice depth in the dialogue here. I really appreciate you.
No, thank you. And I think people need to have knowledge. So knowledge is the precursor to experience. And if they don't know why it works and how it works, like the EFT changes your brain waves, people
Hmm.
are going to think it's something silly.
Yeah,
And also, psychedelics. They think you just go on a trip. Really?
yeah,
I mean, if you do it seriously, you're bringing up stuff that was unaware of, and it's
yeah,
a helpful tool. Is it for all? No, I actually think it's not for all. I think for some people, they should try and find other modalities.
sure.
But having the knowledge is important. And there was a clinical trial. I can't remember what it was about. That I'll give you an example, which is not my example. You know about the ice bath, right? So you take the shower and then the benefit of taking the cold shower, right? Going to an ice bath has a lot of benefits.
Hmm.
If the person has not known the benefits of it and they took the hot shower and they go and you put them in a ice tub, they're going to have harm and there's going to be hypothermia
Yeah, it'll
because
be a threat.
yes. But
Hmm.
if the person knows the benefits, has processed their fears,
Yeah,
and now goes to the ice tub, they will get a benefit. The same thing
Yeah.
with fasting.
Yeah.
You fast someone who doesn't think there's a benefit of fasting, they're going to panic and they're going
Mhm.
to be dizzy and fainting 24/7.
Yeah. Because your body is just like with the ice, it's saying something dangerous. There's a threat to survival that's happening here, and jumping into a cold plunge is absolutely a threat to your survival.
Yes.
And if you can do it properly for a certain amount of time, and you can be aware of the benefits that are going to come from pushing your body through this threat response, that's how you can get to it, to those benefits, is by through the awareness. I always tell people that awareness is the prerequisite for choice. You can't make choices. So if you want to make the choice to go through a fast to get the benefits of it, you have to be aware of why you're doing it in the first place and make choices.
Correct, correct. Because the body follows the mind, and you have to start putting programs to the mind. If the mind gives a signal, this is not safe, oh, now you have the body saying, oh my goodness, this is not safe, and you're going to have a hell of things. I mean, I had an incident the other day. I don't know, this time my fast was a little harder. So I was busy. I didn't take off. I've been working. So on day 3, I happen to be on the thin side and I have low blood pressure. I got very dizzy for maybe 5 minutes. And I said immediately, my thought was, something wrong here. I have to eat. So I said, just calm down for a second. Let's get some salt, because I take a lot of salt when I fast. And I took some potassium and I took some electrolytes. I went through the tapping session with the client. I felt happy afterwards, but my thought was, go and get some food. The good news is I had no food in the refrigerator, which I did deliberately, but it was a good training for
Hmm.
me that the body terrified me. I don't like this dizzy spell.
Yeah.
No one likes it. So I got dizzy for a second, I got disoriented, and I didn't like it. And immediately my first response, go and find the foods. And I said, okay, I have 5 minutes. I can find something to eat. And I said, no, let's try this. Wait a couple of minutes. I did a round of tapping. And then I worked with the client. And then afterwards, there was no desire. There was nothing.
Yeah. You navigated the discomfort.
Yes,
And by doing that, making a practice out of navigating discomfort is you can become comfortable with the discomfort. It
correct.
becomes like when you do a cold plunge, you jump right in and it's the shock right away. It's, oh my gosh, this is threatening. And your body's saying, get out, get out, get out. But you can do this many times where you say, I've been here before. I know this. And if I can get past this initial shock, then I'll get to the pain. And if I can get to the pain and navigate through the pins and needles, then I'll get through to the compression, the tightening, the tension. And if I can get through that, then things start to loosen up and my body starts to relax into this. So you can say, I've been here before. I know how to get through this. And if I can get through it, it'll lead to this over here, which is where I'm trying to get to. I guess that's kind of similar to navigating the threats that we were talking about earlier. If somebody attacks you, is, I've been here before.
You had
I know how to navigate this now. And you can choose to navigate difficult, threatening situations in new ways that are in line with the outcome that you're looking for.
So you brought something interesting. I'm glad the example you gave. Cold plunges is something that I only do for a millisecond. I haven't done them, but I only put the water for a second. But if you've navigated that, and let's say 4 or 5 times, what is the belief about yourself? Just answer that. How do you feel about yourself that you actually did? How do you feel, and what is the belief about you?
Yeah, after I've done it multiple times, well, first thing, I feel great, fantastic. I'm very, very happy, a sense of euphoria. And the belief about myself is that I can navigate difficult things. I am strong, I am capable, and I can navigate difficult, painful, or threatening situations.
Correct. You do that many times, you
Mhm.
now wired a new neural pathway.
Exactly.
Once that becomes permanent, let's go back to the old memory, the
Mhm.
traumatic memory. You've done
Precisely.
that. They're so strong. There's no need to carry the old one anymore.
Mhm.
Now you have another challenge in another area because you only need the emotion and the belief. It doesn't have to be the same experience. Most people think it has to be tit for tat. I have to be in the same experience.
Right.
Now you have a tool and someone else just, something, there's a loss somewhere in your life. Now you have that skill set and you can navigate that. You do a
Mhm.
few of those, that'll trust me on this. Well, it's not my teaching, actually. It's Bashar's and some others. That old thing is going to be wiped out because it
Yeah.
doesn't belong to Julian. Julian doesn't need to have it. Why does Julian need to have it if he is able to navigate this experience? The only reason we were programmed to hold memories is when we used to live in caves and we were in survival so we can protect ourselves. That was the reason we created, or the system created this, and we needed it.
Mm.
And because the next day we woke up, if we started the reality without any memories, we'd go out and the tiger would eat us alive, which is why we held on that belief because we're trying to evolve. If you were to start, let's say you're playing a video game and every day you go and play the video game, but what you learned yesterday and what the rules of the game were wiped out every day, you'd never evolve. But when Julian has mastered it, why does he need to carry that old programming? He doesn't.
Yeah, so it's not that they're ever really lost, it's that they're integrated. They've
And
become a
yes.
tool, a resource that we draw on consistently. And so earlier when I was saying that, I don't think that for me that they've ever really gone away, that they've ever been wiped out or deleted, that they're always there. This is we're in complete alignment at that point.
Yes,
So,
yes. They just seem from far away. I
mhm.
do know what they teach. I haven't had that experience, but the guy that I spoke to, when you really, really, your frequency goes up, the memory actually kind of gets wiped out. I haven't been there, but that's, I follow Bashar. I kind of like Bashar.
Mhm.
And this guy it was a really genuine experience. He says it's just being deleted. It's just gone because it's
And
integrated and you don't need to
yeah.
remember that.
And it's very difficult to see the grand scheme of the reality of things, of what happens. So our bodies are transient, impermanent, and they're going to age and die. I think that we can say that for almost certainty.
Everybody's going to die sooner or later. Yes.
And what happens after this is, have those patterns, have they been integrated? Have you learned from them? Have you healed them? And if you have, and you've created new pathways, then who knows where you go after this, in the sense that you might leave or delete or wipe out those old patterns entirely. And if you haven't, then you're going to probably repeat them and come back around until you learn the lesson. So yeah, maybe that's exactly how it goes. And there's so many ways that you can transcend these old patterns. And this world is so mysterious and so grand that it's hard to see the big picture of it from our little vantage points.
It is. I have a personal opinion on that. I don't have the answers to that. I think if you do your life review before you die, uh, first of all, there's an option, which I strongly believe you can ascend to the higher dimension without physical death. So you move into another body. That's one option. But let's assume you died. You navigate the death process, and now you can create your reality consciously because
Sure.
part of this reality was someone else's reality that we got by default.
Hmm.
So it is much easier because I'll bring the psychedelics. When you do psychedelics, it's way much more intense and you can't even navigate it. It's much easier to navigate it on planet Earth. while you have the physical body, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you had the experience on psychedelics where your body disappears, but you have all this fear and all of this stuff, and you're, like, completely terrified. Because 'cause I've had more bad experiences than good ones. So, it's much easier to do it now before the process of death
A
if you
trial
can.
run, a practice.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And so many ancient traditions would say this exact same thing is yes, face those trials, take that inventory before you cross the gate. Have a trial, have a practice run, multiple ones, so that way you can start to take your inventory and see what needs to be addressed and integrate that and apply that now while you still have time before the actual process unfolds.
Yes, and then if you don't carry much negative, you can say, "You know what? I don't need to have another life where I'm traumatized. I might as well have a good life. I'll put some challenges here, but I'm going to create it based on my rules. And I can also choose, I can go to higher dimensions. I don't want a memory wipe. So I have affinity with the Lemurians, and the Lemurians didn't have a memory wipe.
Yeah, yeah, they were totally psychic with all of their abilities to, uh, as far as I remember,
Yep.
and to communicate non-verbally. So all of these memories were understood through each other. It was like a morphic field, so to speak, that everybody had access to.
Yeah. So why, I mean, personally, I have an issue with the memory. Why I know there's many stories about that, and it's better to have the experience. If I finished 10th grade, why would I need to erase all my 10th grade experience to go back and redo it? It just doesn't make any sense. Doesn't mean I have to remember fully that I'm source. I need to have maybe a little bit of limitation to make the experience interesting, but I can at least bring at will my skill sets. Why do I need to get a complete? It doesn't make sense. I graduated from grade 10 and now I have to do grade 10, but not remember that I did grade 10. It just doesn't make any sense. I know there's many explanations for it. For me, they don't align. It's my personal view, so I don't want anybody listening to say that this is accurate because I don't know. I can only speak from what I know. It just doesn't make sense. And, I do know and I feel it in my heart that the next experience, assuming that we do remember who we are and we follow the principles of not attacking another person and hijacking another consciousness, we will be able to create more of an experience that's more suitable to us and more loving. It doesn't have to be so traumatic and traumatizing like this one, because this one was pretty a hard run.
And it was, yes, and even through this, there have been seasons and patterns and changes that have happened. So, like we were talking about earlier with this agency, choice, power, if we will, um, you tell me if this is accurate or not, but life for you today is much less traumatic than life was 60 years ago.
It definitely is, and I don't react to the outer world. And I could say something that's going to sound real strange. I have a loss of a partner a few years back. If I wasn't at this level of consciousness, I'm pretty sure either I would have been completely depressed or I would have jumped off the window, which
Wow.
I have not done either. And I think these skill sets, or these tools, I should say, help me navigate that, or some challenges where in the past I would have physically affected my body and caused me disease
Yeah.
at sooner or later. Am I at a point that I'm in full bliss? Not yet, but I was entering the blissful state just before the person transitioned. And I do remember clearly I was waking happy and looking forward to the day. And then for whatever reason, my soul agreed to have this experience with this person because he had to co-create it too. So I don't create fully everything, but I agree to it. And I have gotten that information that we agreed to that. And it did force me to sit with the grief. So out of all the emotions, I find grief the hardest one. It
Loss.
doesn't leave. It doesn't leave, and you can't shake it off that easy.
Mm,
And it comes in waves. When you think you got it, it's back there again. And in the beginning, you don't want to let go of the grief because you think if you let go of the grief, you forgot the person.
that's very common.
Yeah.
That's very common. And that's just like we were talking earlier, that's one way of looking at it. That's one perception of it. And yeah, there's lots of them. This reality that we're in is full of loss and hardship
Yes.
and difficulties. And those are to be taken with all of the joys and with all of the expansions and connections and wonderful things. And when we go through the grief and loss, joy and sadness are two sides of the same coin, just like
Mhm.
fear and anger. They're almost always intimately connected. So
Absolutely.
the grief is the symbol of the connection. It's a
Yeah.
sign that there was something wonderful that was here, and this is the pain of loss, but it also doesn't go away.
Absolutely. And the anger, why they chose to leave. You get angry at them too. How dare you leave me? I thought we were agreeing to do this together, but you see all the stories. But at the end of the day, when someone leaves very close, so you have more grief, the more, exactly as you said, the more you love the person. But when the person leaves and you're willing to move through it, it forces you to see reality more. And maybe they're not fully lost because that soul group, that entity, that soul still exists. Maybe not in this dimension.
Yeah.
And that's why these famous mediums are able to connect with them. The avatar doesn't exist as they are, but and then you reach to a higher level, and maybe you decide the next time, if you decide to do a 4D or a 3D experience or a 5D, that you're not going to go through all the trauma because now you remove that karmic imprint.
Choice.
Yeah, choice, and make a happy lifetime.
Yeah.
But we were programmed that everything was difficult. We were programmed
There's a belief right there that it has to be intense, it has to be difficult, it has to be stressful,
and pain.
and it doesn't have to be that way.
Absolutely.
Sophia, I would sit here and talk to you all day. Thank
I
you
know.
so much for
Thank
this
you.
conversation. With where we're at right there, two things. First thing I want to know, is there any last message that you want to share with people? And then two, where can people find you at?
Absolutely. So no matter where you are and how gloom it appears to be, uh, there is another reality or a happier version of you and a better version of you. It doesn't happen overnight, but you can get there. And there's a better you that you can get there. And I'm a firm believer, and I'm an example of that, having an illness that I wasn't expected to live. I am alive. I was told I wasn't going to live. Here I am. So I'm not speaking because it was textbook. I know from personal experience. And you can come to my website, and all my social media have a variation of tap into your best self tap into your best self. I offer a 30-minute complimentary session to find out if we're aligned, or I can guide you to something else. And I do love teaching a neuroscience course. So I offer a 75-minute complimentary masterclass, and it incorporates these tools and how the brain works. I like to explain how it works and why it works and the tools to actually shift it. I'd be honored for anyone who wants to find me. And I also want to really thank you for having me as a guest and giving me the opportunity, because I think we can create a better world. We don't need to buy the fear that's being fed to us 24/7.
That's right. Thank you so much, Sophia.
Yeah. Well, that was great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you.